I'm 109 years old. 109. Just hearing that, you can tell right away, I'm not in a hurry anymore. My mornings start slow, not because I enjoy being slow, but because my knees don't give me much choice. I live with my wife. We don't talk much in the mornings, not because we're upset. Talking too much that early usually turns into an argument, and at this age, arguing is just tiring. People ask me all the time what my secret to a long life is. I usually tell them if I actually knew a real secret, I would have sold it by now. But when you live long enough, you start noticing a few things differently. I've seen a lot of advice come and go. A lot of things that were once called absolutely true, and a lot of beliefs people held on to for decades. Some of the lies we lived with for years weren't cruel at all. They were comfortable, and that's exactly what made them dangerous. Living a long life isn't about giving up everything. It's about knowing what to keep and what to ease off. Looking back, I didn't live this long because of one big decision, just a few small ones. If you really count them, there are 9. Not a miracle, not a new drug, just a handful of small habits I've held on to for most of my life. And chances are you've never heard them talked about quite like this. The first one on that list is alcohol. Yeah, I know. I can already see a few faces tightening up. 3 different doctors at 3 different times. And they all said pretty much the same thing. If you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. I listened. I nodded. I always nod when doctors talk. If you don't, they just keep going. And at this age, I don't have the patience for long lectures, but I didn't quit drinking completely. I changed the way I drink. When I was younger, I drank out of habit, because of friends, because there was always some reason to raise a glass. Now, it's different. Now I drink less, slower, and I stop before my body has to speak up for me. At this age, if you don't listen to your body, it'll find a way to make sure you do. Usually at the worst possible time. I don't think the doctors were wrong. Not at all. They look at numbers. I live inside this body every day. I know when it can handle things, and I know when it's had enough. I don't drink to forget the day. I drink to sit with it for a moment, to know the day is finished. And more than anything, I don't live in fear. I didn't give up everything that still makes life enjoyable. I just eased back on the things that wear it down faster. And once I learned how to do that with alcohol, I realized I could do the same thing with a lot of other things too. The second thing came to me after the whole situation with alcohol. I learned something just as important, that not everything people warn you about is actually true. Over the years, I started to notice a pattern. Every decade, there's something new that suddenly gets called deadly. Today, it's this. Tomorrow, it's something else. If you listen to all of it, you won't feel safe eating anything. You won't feel comfortable drinking anything. And before long, you won't feel free to live your own life at all. I've seen people who did everything right. No alcohol, no fat, no sugar, never late, never off schedule. And they lived in a constant state of worry, worried they were doing something wrong, worried about test results, worried about what tomorrow might bring. They wore themselves down fast, not because their bodies were weak, but because their minds were always stretched tight, like a rope pulled too far. I'm not against medicine. I'm not against advice. I just learn not to panic. Every time someone sounds an alarm, I pick what makes sense. I pay attention to my body, and I don't let fear run every small decision in my day. At this age, living in constant fear does more harm than eating the wrong thing once or having one extra drink. When I stopped living like I was always being warned, everything else got easier. I move my body without overthinking it. I eat without punishing myself. I sleep better because my mind finally knows how to rest. And most important of all, I'm still me. The third one is a lot simpler. I don't let this body sit still for too long. I've never been a gym person, never really liked workouts that make you tired just looking at them. But I figured something out a little earlier than most folks. A body that sits around too long forgets how to work. So I walk a little faster than a casual stroll, fast enough that I'm breathing harder, but slow enough that I can still talk. Some days I swim, some days I ride a bike. I'm not trying to prove anything, just reminding my body, hey, you're still being used. I don't exercise every day. I do it regularly, 2, maybe 3 times a week, about half an hour each time. Doesn't sound like much, but I did that for years. At this age, I'm not exercising to feel young again. I'm exercising so I can still get out of bed on my own in the morning. Sounds simple, but once you lose that, that's when you realize how important it was. People ask me why I don't train harder. I tell them I'm training to live longer, not to beat anybody. This body may be old, but it still understands the rules of the game, as long as you're willing to keep playing with it. And when I keep myself moving regularly, a lot of other things get easier too. I sleep better. I eat with a little more sense. My mind feels lighter. I don't even call it exercise. I just call it staying part of the day. I'm still living. The fourth thing came to me after I'd already made staying active a habit. I realized something else. Just walking wasn't quite enough. The body is a lot like an old machine. If you only let it run at the same speed all the time, it gets used to it, and then it gets lazy. So every once in a while, I remind my heart what it was built to do. Not for long. I don't have the time or patience for long, punishing workouts. Just a few minutes, 3, 5, some days 8, if I'm feeling generous. I pedal the bike faster than usual, or pull on the rowing machine, or do a few short movements that bring the sweat on quickly. I go until I can't talk anymore. That's when I stop. No pushing past it, no proving anything. At this age, knowing when to stop is just as important as knowing when to start. I don't do this every day. Once or twice a week is plenty, but those few minutes do their job. My heart feels stronger, my lungs work better, and my mind wakes up. Some people say this kind of effort is dangerous for older folks. I understand that. But what's more dangerous is letting your heart forget what it feels like to work hard. I'm not chasing exhaustion. I'm chasing that feeling that says, all right, I'm still here. The whole idea of not letting yourself get weak isn't loud, but it decides a lot about how your later years turn out. I'll say it plainly. Old age doesn't take you down with illness first. It makes you weak first. Weak enough that getting up feels hard. Weak enough that going outside feels like work. And then, little by little, you stop going anywhere at all. I didn't want to end up like that. So the fifth thing I hold on to is keeping some strength. Not a lot, not for show, just enough that my body remembers it's still being used. Light weights, a few body weight movements, wall push-ups, sitting down and standing back up. Very simple things, but I do them regularly. Muscle isn't just about being strong. It keeps your bones solid. It helps you keep your balance. It lets you keep doing your own work. People like to say, you're old now, being weak is normal. I don't really buy that. Weakness shows up when you stop using your body. The muscle you build when you're younger is insurance for later in life. And if you didn't build enough back then, you can still hang on to some now. I don't train to beat anyone. I train so the next morning I can put on my own shirt without asking for help. It sounds small, but when the moment comes, that's a lifetime of freedom. And once I learned how to keep just enough strength, I realized something else. If you want to keep muscle, you have to eat properly. Not too much, but not too little either. Once I managed to hold on to my muscle, I understood something very simple. The sixth thing is this. If you want your body to keep working, you have to give it enough fuel. It sounds obvious, but a lot of older people get this part wrong. Some people cut out everything. Some people are afraid of eating too much. Some think, I'm old now. Eating less will make things easier. Easier doesn't show up. Weakness does. I don't overeat, but I don't let myself run short either. I eat enough regularly. No big swings between heavy meals and skipped ones. People say calorie restriction helps you live longer. I believe that. But if you restrict things so much that your body doesn't have the materials it needs to repair itself, the damage shows up long before the benefit. There's one thing I pay closer attention to than the rest. Protein. Not because it's trendy, but because I've seen very clearly what happens when you don't get enough of it. When protein runs low, muscle goes first, and once muscle goes, everything else follows much faster. I eat a plant-based diet, but I don't guess. I track what I eat. I make sure my body gets what it needs. It's not about eating the right foods. It's about whether your body has enough to work with. At this age, eating isn't about pleasure like it was when I was younger. It's about staying capable. I don't need fancy meals. I just need to eat in a way that lets me wake up the next day and stand up without having to think too hard about it. And then I realized one more thing. No matter how well you eat, if you don't sleep properly, all of it goes to waste. I'll be honest with you. If I had to pick just one thing that saved me more times than I ever expected, it would be sleep. That's the seventh one. Doesn't sound exciting. It's not new. And you sure can't sell it in a commercial. But lose your sleep for a while, and you'll understand real fast how expensive it actually is. When I was younger, I didn't respect sleep at all. Staying up late was fine. Sleeping less didn't feel like a problem. Back then, my body was like a brand new car. You could push it hard, and it would still keep running. Now it's different. Now, if I sleep poorly for just a few nights, I feel it right away. My mind slows down. My body feels heavier. I don't feel like exercising. I eat whatever's easiest. That's where all the bad stuff starts. People talk about heart disease, cancer, memory problems. I don't remember all the details of that. I just know this. When I don't sleep well, this old body stops cooperating. So I protect my sleep the way you protect something rare. I go to bed when it's time to go to bed. No negotiating. At night, I don't try to get one more thing done. The work can wait. If I've got strength in the morning, I'll handle it then. I don't drink coffee late. Not because I'm afraid of my heart. I just like sleeping more. People ask me why I go to bed so early. I tell them, at this age, there's nothing good on late anyway. When I sleep enough, everything else gets easier. I eat better. Moving doesn't feel so hard. I'm less irritable. I don't call sleep a habit. I call it the foundation. And when the foundation is solid, I've got the strength to hold on to things that matter even more, things you can't measure with a clock or with test results, things you measure by one simple question. Whether there's someone sitting next to you every day, I'll tell you something straight. The thing that knocks people down the fastest isn't sickness. It's this being alone for too long. That's the 8th thing. And I don't mean living by yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean not having anybody really there. You know, no one on your side. I live with my wife. We don't talk all the time. Most days, we just sit. She's doing her thing. I'm doing mine. But knowing she's there, that's enough. People ask me how we've stayed married this long. I tell them, well, neither one of us is perfect, and neither one of us walked away. Marriage doesn't keep you alive because it's fun. Half the time, it isn't. It keeps you alive because you don't have to carry everything by yourself. And outside of my wife, I make sure I've still got people around, old friends, neighbors, someone who asks, how are you holding up today? Doesn't have to be a big talk, just someone who knows you're still here. Some days I don't feel great. Some days I'm cranky, but I don't let a couple bad days turn into a whole quiet life. Loneliness is easy to ignore, doesn't show up on tests, doesn't hurt. No fever, but it eats at you. Slow, day after day. I've seen folks who ate right, worked out, did everything they were supposed to do, but lived alone too long. And they faded fast. Not because their bodies quit, but because they ran out of reasons to keep going. And that's what leads me to the last thing I hang on to. Not a habit, not a routine, just a reason to get out of bed in the morning. This last one doesn't really sound like a habit, but without it, the other ones don't last very long. I always give myself a reason to get up in the morning. Not a big goal, not some grand dream, just something small that makes today feel a little different from yesterday. Some days it's walking down to the end of the block. Some days it's fixing something around the house. Some days it's just making coffee for my wife before she gets a chance to remind me. Doesn't sound like much, but it gets me out of bed. I've seen people who were strong, ate right, worked out, did everything by the book. And then one day, they had nothing to do. No one waiting for them, no reason to push a little harder, and they went downhill fast. Not because their bodies failed them, but because life stopped calling them up in the morning. At this age, I'm not living to achieve anything new. I'm living to stay part of the day. I'm still in to see the sun come up, to hear another human voice, to do one small thing I didn't do yesterday. I don't know how many days I've got left. Nobody does. But as long as I wake up with a reason to put my feet on the floor that morning, I'm still here. And maybe that's the one thing that kept me around. longer than I ever thought I would be.